Kia ora and welcome to today's episode of the Niche Cast, the special Kiwi-NRL episode where we are chatting through all things NRL from the land of Aotearoa. Prior to this, we have recorded a Flying Kiwis football episode, so check that out if you do like football or if you just love Aotearoa sporting excellence. There is plenty of that on display in the Flying Kiwis yarns. And you can get these on your, however you get your podcasts, whatever fucking channel you want to use, however you get your videos, whatever you're doing, however you're doing it, kia kaha to yourself, because we are here to broadcast Aotearoa's sporting excellence. We have a Patreon. You can support the Niche Case directly on Patreon, patreon.com/Niche Case. Every Monday and Friday, we drop an email banger, which is all just Niche Case goodness straight to your email inbox. Sign up to that via Substack. That is the nichecase.substack.com. All these links are in the bios and descriptions and all that good shit. And we are always writing about Kiwi sports at the niche-case.com. Before we crack into the rugby league yarns, wobbly wildcard, can you please tick the box of a dose of mindfulness to start the show?
That I can, and I'm going to dip into the same well as I did with the Flying Kiwis podcast. This is Mr. Ram Das once again, who says, just even short and sharper than the last one. This is just 4 words: make friends with change.
Make friends with change. You don't want to be an enemy with change. You don't want to be at war.
You definitely don't
change.
want that.
It doesn't work out because change is the only thing that is consistent, really. It's the only thing that stays the same as the amount of change. So if you're enemies with change and you're dealing with, you're going to war with change, you're basically doing what USA does and just starting endless wars that don't mean anything. But
which you'll never be able to get out of, yeah.
But you might get rich because you're making ammunition and all that shit. Righto. Just a bit of housekeeping here, Wildcard, because we do have some action up in Queensland. Now, we do know the NRL is obviously being played in Queensland, but the Queensland Rugby League competitions appear to be back up and running. So we have reserve grade, the Intra Super Cup is back up and running, and we also have under 21s, Hastings, Darings, Colts. There are Kiwis scattered throughout these teams. I've written about this. There is a page on our Facebook page today, a post on our Facebook page today, that is the Kiwi-NRL hub of Southeast Queensland. And that goes into depth about all the junior Kiwi-NRL prospects who are being housed and are being developed in Southeast Queensland, whether that is with Gold Coast Titans, Brisbane Broncos, or Melbourne Storm, and a bunch of other clubs who are connected in some way, shape, or form to Southeast Queensland. So this is interesting, but we also have our Warriors angle here with the Redcliffe Dolphins. They are the Warriors feeder club at the moment. So I'll just focus on the Warriors angles here, but do know under 21s and reserve grade, there are a shitload of Kiwis doing their things there as well. Under 21 Redcliffe Dolphins, players that are connected to the Warriors. You got Eric Va'afusanga. He is starting on the wing. And on the other wing, you've got Dayon Amatuanai, who is from Wellington, and he's a very exciting Warriors prospect. And you've got William Whakatomafe starting at centre. He is Otahuhu Jr. Eric Va'afusoanga, he played first 15 for King's College. So you've got 3 Warriors outside backs playing for the under 21s at Redcliffe. And then in reserve grade, you've got Junior Ratuva, who was a King's College first 15 lock from Fiji, or a forward. Then the Melbourne Storm recruited him from King's College. And then he had some injury issues and he popped up possibly playing for Canterbury NPC like a year or 2 ago. Then the Warriors signed him. Then he had another injury. And a couple of weeks ago now, a month or 2 ago now, he was playing in Auckland Fox Memorial. I think it was for Bay Roskell. And then from there, he got shipped over to Redcliffe, where he is now playing reserve grade. Big athlete, typical Peter O'Sullivan type of outside back. but he has gone straight into reserve grade. So he's an interesting prospect to keep an eye on with the Warriors. And the only two other Warriors named to play reserve grade this week are the Kepu twins. They are forwards. They are Manurewa Marlins juniors, and I think they were playing SG Ball last year, and they've gone into reserve grade through the Redcliffe Dolphins. So shout out to them. And just an update on the NRL women's competition. The number of Kiwi wahine in the NRLW is obviously basically at an all-time low because of COVID situations, no Warriors teams, all that good stuff. But we do have some Kiwis who started the year, they moved over to Australia, or players like Rona Peters, Nita Maynard, who are based in Australia. So just quickly here, the Broncos have Amber Hall, who is from Auckland. She's a Kiwi Fern. She played for the Broncos last year. The Titans they got Georgia Hale, who was a Warriors player. She moved over to Gold Coast to start this season to get into that Gold Coast Titans system. And they also have Kimiora Nati, who is a Kiwi Ferns half. She is playing for the Titans. That's all by the looks of it. And then we have Nita Maynard is playing for the Parramatta Eels. And I think that's it. So all those players have been based in Australia this season. Hopefully we get some better information around like Kiwi schedules, representative footy for the Kiwi Ferns, and then we can chat through that and see what players locally are in the mix and all that stuff. But at the moment, all the NRL women's players are based in Australia. So shout out to them, and shout out to the prospects under 21s and those in reserve grade getting back into the competition in Queensland this week. We are here to chat through some NRL footy, though, Wildcard, and we are deep in a lockdown, but we still have NRL footy, which is making it a little bit easier, isn't it? Like NRL games Thursday through to Sunday. Definitely, like that weekend coming into Monday, it was like, oh, there's nothing on, there's no sport on Monday night. Like it was a bit different, but it's good to have NRL footy to watch compared to like our previous lockdowns.
Yes, and especially at this time of the year when there's like 2 rounds left and then we're going to be cracking into playoffs as well. So a lot of these games have like plenty on the line, and also there are like teams who are not going to make the playoffs and who are trying to do the spoiler thing, but who, because of that, like you start thinking about next season. And we've had a couple of Kiwi-NRL debutants coming through in the last month or so as well, and all those good things, all those things that we like to see, all the stuff that we follow. It's very much still in play with the NRL, despite the fact that both New Zealand and large swaths of Australia are also currently battling the old Delta variant. Pesky little bastard that it is.
It is indeed. We'll go game by game here. Obviously, we focus on the Kiwis. We focus on the Kiwi NRL angle, and less Australian stuff, the better, because there is a fantastic Kiwi NRL presence in the NRL at the moment. Newcastle Knights versus Gold Coast Titans. This is the Thursday game. And my main note here, Wildcard, is that Jeremiah is back on the Knights bench after making his debut last week. He came up through St. Paul's College in Auckland, but he was actually a first 15 star at St. Paul's College, which is a bit weird because St. Paul's is like, it's the Australian equivalent, it's the New Zealand equivalent of Kebra Park in Australia. It's like one of the only rugby league schools, specific rugby league schools in Aotearoa. But Jeremiah he didn't excel at rugby league at St. Paul's. He was scouted as a rugby union player at St. Paul's by the Storm. And then he went to the Newcastle Knights, where he made his debut last weekend, and he's back on the bench this week. That's my main focus, is just seeing Jeremiah develop through the middle. He's playing through the middle for the Knights. And the Knights also have Simi Sasangi on their extended bench, while the Titans have Aaron Clark coming off the bench. He's a Manurewa Marlins junior. And Sam Lasone, Isan Masters, and Greg Mars, who are all on the extended bench. Obviously, Kevin Proctor stays as an edge forward as well. Anything there, wildcard, that tickles your fancy?
Well, the main thing I'm thinking, looking at that, is just like Knights Titans, knowing where each of them are roughly on the ladder. Is I'm thinking, how does that affect like the Warriors situation, which has been kind of the main focus, and like the Warriors losing on the weekend probably, like realistically, probably takes them out of the hunt, particularly with their poor points difference, but not mathematically. Mathematically doesn't take them out of the hunt. I'm just looking at the table as to how, like, what the ramifications are here. Newcastle in 7th on 24 points are probably, they can't finish any higher than 7th, but they shouldn't really finish any lower than 7th. But because they also have a terrible points difference, they could technically miss the, like, I'm not sure how, I'd have to look at like other fixtures, but I'm pretty sure that it's possible that 2 out of Cronulla, Gold Coast, and Canberra could win both of their remaining games, in which case Newcastle would miss out most likely, because those teams will have much better points difference, and Newcastle's won't be improving if they're losing 2 games. So that's a possibility from a Warriors perspective, which isn't my normal perspective, but it has been fun seeing, like, just because they got in a little roll at a time when my interest in the Dragons is probably at an all-time low. Or not interest is not the right word. Enthusiasm would be the right word, at an all-time low. That's like the Warriors would very much want Newcastle to win this. So old mate Momosia has a big game, scores a couple tries that would not go astray for the homeland.
Speaking of the Warriors, they're playing the next game on Friday, and they are playing the Camber Raiders. So that's another game in that top 8 bubble. The Warriors were pretty ho-hum in their loss to the Broncos. No Chanel Harris-Tavita this week. He's out. So I was putting a big focus on Harris-Tavita just to see how he would develop with consistent game time, which led to him being out this week. So
which is like the 3rd time it feels like that conversation's happened as well this season.
Yeah, like, I just want to see that dude play rugby league consistently. He's pretty cool. But less about the Warriors here. Like, shout out to the Warriors. They may or may not win this game. Who the fuck knows? They're cursed. And that kind of means that usually when they need to win a game, they don't. Matt Lodge is back. Adam Fanua-Blake, Matt Lodge, that's cool, blah, blah, blah. My main thing here, though, is the Camber Raiders, because the Camber Raiders are a very much an emerging Kiwi-NRL club. Obviously, they've had a heavy Kiwi-NRL presence for a while. You think of Shans Nickel-Klokstad, Joseph Tapane, Saliva Havili as well. Now, then they added Corey Harawira-Naera, who is finding some form with the Raiders, and Jordan Rapin has been there a long time. Then Bailey Simonson comes into the mix. But right now, it's all about Matthew Tomoko, who was a really good rugby league player. Like, he was in age group teams, representative teams, New Zealand Rugby League teams. And then he played first 15 for Auckland Grammar, and also played rugby league, like representative rugby league, while playing first 15 for Grammar. And he is starting to start a few more games at centre for the Raiders. And I think he is going to be frothing just to showcase his talents. He's a very powerful ball runner, nuggety, mobile, rips in. He actually played a few games in the middle for the Raiders this season, just Ricky Stewart trying to get him some game time, obviously injuries and stuff like that as well. But this is a trend with the Raiders, is them scouting first 15 players from Aotearoa. In the lower grades, they've got Leo Thompson. His brother plays for the Hurricanes, his twin brother, forgot his name, Tyrone Thompson or something like that. He plays for the Hurricanes. There's another dude in their SG ball team called Jack Sandford. He played fullback, and he was a first 15 player from Christchurch Boys High School as well. And I think it's the Jerry Mulholland might be the recruitment dude at the Raiders. He's got a very keen eye over Aotearoa, especially first 15 rugby, and that's going to be on display this weekend with Matthew Tomoko, number 4 in the centres. Keep a close eye on him.
Yeah, well, I don't have anything else to add on that game. If you do, then fire away. Otherwise, we move on to the 9:55 p.m. kickoff on Friday night, which is an absolute rip snorter of a game. The Sydney Roosters against the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and the big old derby. I actually I was skipping through a bunch of stuff on YouTube the other day because there's a new Anthony Bourdain documentary. I actually still haven't watched it. I've got it on my computer waiting to get around to it. But I was looking at some Bourdain clips, and there was one from when he went to Australia. It was like I think it was just in Sydney. I can't remember. But I'm going to assume that Russell Crowe set this up. But he was like in the corporate box watching a Roosters South Sydney game with Mario the Falcon Fennec. You can imagine what the conversation was like in that between that company. And it was so good because it was like I vaguely remembered the game, but not really. Like it could be anyone. This kind of thing happens a lot in the NRL, but it was the kind of thing where there's a bunch of South Sydney fans all around them going, you know what South Sydney fans will be like as well when their team's winning, just going wild. And with about like 2 minutes on the clock, and they lost, and it was just like a nice one of those parts unknown-y montages of just people, just a bunch of South Sydney fans looking devastated because they don't understand how they managed to lose that.
Well, the South Sydney Rabbitohs have Jackson Porter on the wing, and they do have a bit of Benji Marshall as well. So I would have definitely have liked Anthony Bourdain to see Benji Marshall play in the flesh before he passed away. But this game's all about the Roosters for me, because the more injuries the Roosters have, the better for Kiwi-NRL stocks, because they are one of the best recruiting Kiwi-NRL teams in the NRL, and their injury situation means that Brad Abbey starts on the wing. Brad Abbey was a bit of a star for the Warriors under-20s back in the day a few years ago, and then he bounced around. He went to the Bulldogs for a while. I think he played a game there, and then he went to the Raiders. I think he had a train and trial situation with the West Tigers, and then he went to the Roosters, and now he's on the wing for the Roosters. And they're like, one of the low-key stories about the Roosters season is that they are performing at a decent level, and we hear like, oh, James Tedesco's carrying this team, or Trent Robinson, like his coaching job with all these injuries and all that. That's all true. There's also a lot of Kiwi NRL players who are playing every single week. Jared Waidea-Hargreaves is one of them. Joseph Manu is another one of them. Isaac Liu just goes under the radar. He's an Otahuhu Jr. Satili Tupanui is having a fantastic season. He's a Maris Saints Jr. in Auckland, and someone who will probably play for Tonga in their next fixtures. And now we're seeing some of that depth on display as well, considering Brad Abbey is going to play on the wing, and we have Naufahu White getting his second game on the bench. He is a Waitemata Seagulls Junior out of Kelston Boys High School. Very robust, dynamic forward. Keep an eye on him. Very talented young player. I think he is Tongan as well, so he could be another option for Tonga. And on their extended bench, they have Moala Graham Talfa. He is, I think they might be twin brothers, or they're just brothers. His other brother, Lani Graham Talfa, is also with the Roosters. They were part of the Roosters do the fly in, fly out for SG ball games and stuff like that. And the Moala Graham Talfa brothers have been part of that Roosters system for a long time now, and Moala is named on the extended bench. So the key thing here is that the more injuries and retirements and issues the Roosters have, the better it is for Kiwi NRL, because they have fantastic Kiwi NRL depth. They have fantastic Kiwi NRL scouting and recruitment, and there is no salary cap sombrero. It is about having an advantage with more resources, more money to invest in those Kiwi NRL pipelines. That's where the benefit comes. Dragons versus Cowboys. Dragons, you'd know better than I do, Wildcard, that they're not the most entertaining team in the NRL. I'll be interested to get your assessment on Griffin Niami. Now, I'm assuming that his last name is pronounced Niami. The Australian commentators keep referring to him as Neem, but we're going to go with Niami, which let's just hope it is Niami, or else I'll look like an idiot. He's coming off the bench for the North Queensland Cowboys. He is from Greymouth, and he is also playing his second NRL game this season. Very big middle forward with the Cowboys, who was fantastic on debut. Nafahu White was fantastic on debut a few weeks ago as well. So I'll be interested, Wildcard, to get your perspective on Niami as a Dragons fan, watching Niami rip through the Dragons' middle.
As is likely to happen. The only qualifier there is to get my opinion on the matter. I will have to actually watch the game, so we'll see. We'll see what I'm doing at 5 p.m. on a Saturday night. No football this week, so there's not much other sport in general, actually. So it might be a clean slate. You might get lucky there.
Obviously, you're not desperate to watch the Dragons.
It's 2 hours of my life, which I could spend doing something more productive. But, I could chuck it on the background and read a book or something. It's easily chuck their headphones on and listen to something. There are many ways to skin the cat.
Just
keep an
check
eye
your
out.
Personal notification brain system anytime they say name.
Yeah,
that's when you know.
They did the same thing with last week in the Roosters Dragons game. The Dragons have got this fellow who's playing in the halves at the moment called Junior Amone, and they just kept calling him Amone. So you have to have played 30 games or something of NRL, like multiple seasons, before anyone bothers to learn how to pronounce your name. Like, is that? I know some players just don't care. Some like, just call me whatever you want. I'm living the dream, so I'm not bothered. But like others do, and it's just such a weird loophole in Australian sports. Where you can at least try. It's not that hard, especially when you get so many names. That it's like there's a lot of let's be honest. It's a lot of Samoan, Tongan, and Māori names in particular that are getting mispronounced. It's a lot of the same principles. Like, you can figure out the patterns of how to say things, where the vowel sounds go and stuff like that. It's not that hard.
Yeah, so Niami and Amone are both using the same E.
Exactly.
Like, it's the same. So you can see how they get Neem and Amone. But I don't know. Like, we're not perfect at pronouncing names either. So it's.
But there's a difference between, like, not perfect but trying.
Yeah, we give it a good
so
crack.
much better than not trying at all.
Indeed.
Like, the difference between not trying and not perfect but trying, and the difference between not perfect but trying and perfect, the latter is a much smaller gap. Intentions are I'm sure there's a Ram Dass quote to cover that one about good intentions.
It was just like I was envisioning some like Ian Smith doing cricket commentary in Pakistan has arrived, and they've got like all the Shaheen Shah Afridi and all those characters, and there'll be like a pronunciation sheet. Like, surely that kind of stuff has to happen. But
that was a 12th man skit, wasn't it? And they do that with like the Richie Benos going through the Tony Griggs and
I'm not sure how that will play out in 2021.
No, but
Cronulla Sharks.
It's satire though.
It is. Yeah, it's a murky line in 2021. It's a murky line in 2021. Sharks versus Broncos, another massive Kiwi-NRL game. The Sharks have Mawane Hiroti. He is starting on the wing, and this is interesting because the Sharks also have a dude by the name of Jensen Taumoepiao on their extended bench, and he is yet to make his debut. But off the top of my head, he is also from Taranaki. So Mawane Hiroti is from Taranaki, and Jensen Taumoepiao is also from Taranaki. And I think Taumoepiao was recruited by the Rabbitohs and then went to the Sharks, and Mawane Hiroti was recruited by the Rabbitohs and then went to the Sharks as well. So a nice twist there. The Sharks have Hamlin Uele coming off the bench. They also have Britton Nakora starting on an edge. And when you look at the Broncos, they have Jordan Ricky on one edge. So I'm going to be interested. I just sort of thinking back to the Warriors versus Broncos game. I think Alex Glenn and Anthony Milford defended on the left edge, and Britton Nakora is going to play on the right edge for the Sharks. So that's that matchup. I would have loved to have seen Britton Nakora coming up against Jordan Ricky. That would be an amazing battle between those two, both of whom are competing for like Kiwis edge forward positions. And of course, the Broncos also have TC Robati coming off the bench. No Xavier Willison. He's from Hamilton. He is out injured. I think he's got a knee injury at the moment. While TC Robati, Porirua Vikings Jr. is getting that edge spot or bench spot for the Broncos. Broncos are low-key one of the best group of young Kiwi-NRL forwards in the NRL, so keep an eye on them. Did you have any Broncos thoughts there, Wildcard, or Sharks thoughts?
Yeah, I guess the Broncos have they haven't fully done it yet, but they're in the process of just cleaning house, aren't they? So when one player leaves, another one steps up. And what you're saying about the Roosters trying to, you transition smoothly, there's been anything but a smooth transition for the Broncos. They're having to do it like abruptly and dramatically. But when you do that, move one guy out, you need someone else to step up. There's always plenty of Kiwi NRL talent. It's just waiting in the wings for these opportunities. So it seems like we have seen a fair bit of that with the Broncos in recent weeks. This is another one of those Warriors focus games, isn't it? Where like, so long as obviously everything depends on the Warriors taking care of business in their last two games, which in itself might be unlikely, but who knows? But like the Broncos sort of stitched up the Warriors last week and beating them. To argue it was a little bit more about Reece Walsh not being able to kick more than one goal throughout these various opportunities, but the Broncos can pay the favor right back if they can beat the Sharks, which would be enormous for the Warriors and a couple other teams as well who are in that same hunt, trying to stay in the mix. So ramifications in this one for sure. Ramifications is the next one too, because Melbourne Storm, Parramatta, Eels, the Storm are going for 20 in a row, aren't they? Is that the record? Do you know what the record consecutive wins in? Have they done it already?
I think they tied it last week. There was all that.
This could be the record.
Yeah, so this might be it. We know what the Storm do. They are the best team in the NRL. They are the best Kiwi NRL team as well. Jerome Hughes, Jesse Bromwich, Brandon Smith, Kenny Bromwich, Noah Sofa-Solomona this week, which is I love watching a Sofa-Solomona play rugby league. So hopefully he comes back soon enough. It's kind of more about the Parramatta Eels here, just with Dylan Brown looking for some form and Isaiah Papali'i now starting at prop. Obviously a resurgence season for him. Maratini Okori starting on an edge as well, another former Warriors junior. And then the journeyman, Makahisi Makatoa, who is from New Plymouth, which is also Taranaki. So we're getting some good Taranaki vibes here with in the Kiwi NRL this week. So big it up to Taranaki region. That's the theme of this week is Taranaki. Shout out to Taranaki for doing the damn thing. All right, Seagulls versus Bulldogs. Bulldogs are up Schitt's Creek. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit about the Bulldogs when we have the Seagulls? Now, not only are the Seagulls like a fun team to watch on a weekly basis, just with how they play their footy. They use Tom Trbojevic in really creative ways. Them and Joseph Manu with the Roosters, they're the only real teams who go outside the box and looking to execute creative plays for specific players, often out of position, anywhere on the field. It's really exciting to see. But the Seagulls also have a Kiwi NRL group that is really interesting. And I wrote about this during the week, how they have the veterans. You got Kieran Foran and Marty Tapau, who are both in not career best form, but not too far off given the context around where they're at in their careers. And then the Seagulls also have Morgan Harper and Josh Alawai playing at a really high level for them as well. And that's the Des Hasler development system, coaching system, getting the best out of players. Morgan Harper was a mid-season switch from the Bulldogs last year, so he'll probably dominate the Bulldogs. And Josh Alawai was a mid-contract switch from the West Tigers over the summer. So the Seagulls just like reshaped their roster with two younger Kiwi NRL players, Morgan Harper and Josh Alawai. And no Tofoa Sipley this week, which is a bummer. He was in some good form, big lad coming off the bench. So I'm all about the Seagulls. I'm all about their top end talent, just watching Cherry Evans, watching the Chaboyevich brothers. But Schuster's got a bit of razzle dazzle about him as well. But then there's also heavy Kiwi-NRL presence and vibes here with the Seagulls as well, which is not quite there for the Bulldogs.
No, well, nothing's quite there for the Bulldogs. Every time they make like a big signing or something, the Bulldogs, and it'll be like there'll be this talk about how they're getting back on track and they've got the right idea and stuff like this. But like they've signed 2 players from my Dragons this season. There's the fullback that has been shopped to every club in the league and to a couple in the Super League as well. And the Bulldogs were the only one who wanted to sign him. And then there's the dude who got booted out of the league entirely for the rest of the season because he hosted a barbecue during COVID restrictions. Like that's your 2 big signings from going in that direction, at least from the Dragons. Like that's maybe not indicative of the best like forward planning. I don't know. I'm sure Paul Vaughan will do well for them though, because at least he's a very handy player. And Dufty at least should have been playing throughout the last month or whatever, because they've got no clue what else they're doing, but whatever. I was just looking at Marty Tapau's stats while you're talking about him, and like 20 games played, couple tries, 95% success rate, 150 plus meters a game. He's getting tackle breaks, he's getting offloads. It's pretty astounding. And I also am becoming quite a big fan of watching Morgan Harper play. Although someone told me that he looks like Taika Waititi's character from Boy, and I kind of can't unsee it. So I think it's mostly the curly hair, but there you go.
And has said this on the podcast earlier in the week, his great-grandfather, or he's got 2 grandfathers or 2 great-grandfathers who both represented Aotearoa, one for the All Blacks and one for the Kiwis. He was playing for the Ngaruawahia Premier team when he was like 17 years old, and he had twin boys. He is an absolute champion. He is sporting royalty out of the Waikato, so big it up to Morgan Harper. The Bulldogs as well, like they signed Nick Cottridge, they signed Corey Allen. At the same time, Morgan Harper goes to the Seagulls and Remus Smith goes to the Melbourne Storm. Both of them were on far less money than, like, Harper and Smith combined would have been less than Nick Cottridge's salary. And like, look how that's panned out. Like, Remus Smith is pushing for Kiwis selection, born and raised in Sydney, but his dad played for the Kiwis and he's played for junior Kiwis. So I do have him as a Kiwis option, but he is like just a typical Melbourne Storm success story. Same with Harper under Des Hasler. Both were with the Bulldogs, and the Bulldogs decided to splash money on guys who aren't doing a whole lot right now. And also just to like further the negative vibes towards the Bulldogs. It's not about whether I liked or disliked what happened with Phil Gould. It just set up everything. It's just a juncture where we're like, okay, where do the Warriors and Bulldogs go from here? Because he had a dabble in the Warriors, and whatever happened there. Went back to the Bulldogs. So I'm just interested. I'm interested in a comparison there, and I'm kind of hoping the Bulldogs stay shit. Panthers versus Tigers. Big return for James Fisher-Harris, straight out of Northland, one of the best middle forwards in the NRL. Absolutely love James Fisher-Harris. He is back for the Penrith Panthers. And again, similar to the Roosters, it's all about Nathan Cleary. It's all about Isaiah Yeo. It's all about Jerome Luai and all that stuff at the Panthers. It's also all about James Fisher-Harris here at the Niche Case with our Kiwi-NRL vibes. So he'll be humming, absolutely humming to get back to footy. And the West Tigers, who are probably like just as shit as the Bulldogs, really, let's be honest here, and just as mediocre as the Dragons. But what the West Tigers do have is a interesting Kiwi-NRL situation, whether it is Michael Maguire as Kiwis coach or whether it's their recruitment So we've had Kalma Tuolangi make his debut a few weeks ago. Tuki Mihia Simpkins from Rotorua has also got back into the mix. Simpkins had a few issues defensively in the middle. Like watching him play last week, just fell off a lot of tackles in the middle, and it wasn't good. And that's probably why he's not on the bench this week. But that was strange to me because he comes from the like hard-working, loose forward rugby union background at Rotorua Boys High School. So I'll just chalk that one up to like a new player in the NRL. But the Tigers have good Kiwi-NRL vibes. They're developing young Kiwi-NRL players from other clubs who they have recruited, but they will get absolutely smoked by the Penrith Panthers in this game.
Yeah, well, it's been the case all season, hasn't it? When those top couple teams play the bottom couple teams, and the Tigers are clinging on the edge of that. Like the last team in 13th place, they're like the last team who have a still a mathematical chance of getting into the top 8. That'll be gone if they lose this weekend, one would assume. And with their points difference of minus 162, it's probably already gone. I think that's going to get a whole lot worse. I think you're right there. The Penrith Panthers have not suffered fools lightly all season. They are close to full strength leading into the playoffs, and this is probably one of those 50-pointers that we've seen a couple incarnations of throughout the season. It seems like this one fits that bill as well.
And I was listening to the Triple M weekend show last weekend, and they played us a bit about Andrew Johns and Matty Johns were talking about like how Newcastle isn't producing halfbacks from Newcastle. Like they signed Adam Clune from the Dragons, and they just aren't producing like a homegrown halfback. I'm thinking here, this is a good example. You got Penrith Panthers and West Tigers. Now, shout out to Phil Gould for setting up their whole Penrith Panthers thing, because that's resulted in a Penrith Panthers team that is predominantly Panthers juniors. But my idea here to finish this podcast, this episode, the dirty secret, I think, for a lot of these NRL teams is that like most NRL teams, especially those who aren't traveling so flash maybe, but just generally, most NRL teams aren't consistent, aren't built around their junior base. Like West Tigers, let's run through their team right here. Moses Imbai, he's not a Tigers junior. Noah Faluma did come up through the Tigers. Tommy Talau was signed from the Bulldogs. Chikam was signed from Manly Seagulls, I think. Ken Mamalo joined from the Warriors. Jock Madden, dunno. Luke Brooks, local junior. Thomas Mikaeli is a local junior, but he came through Kibra Park. Jacob Little, local junior. Stefano Utukamanu, he was an Eels junior. Sean Bloor, he was at the Panthers. Luciano Leilua, he was with the Dragons. Alex Twal, he was with the Eels. Joe Offengawe, signed from the Broncos. Jake Simpkin, probably a local junior. Tom Monet, he was playing for the Rabbitohs last season. James Roberts, he was with the Rabbitohs, maybe Broncos, but he was not with the Tigers last season. Alex Seafarth, maybe a Tigers junior. Billy Walters, not a Tigers junior. Tuki Simpkins was signed from the Cowboys last summer, and Zach Sinney was playing with the Panthers, I believe, in the junior system. And that's like, I think it's the same for the Newcastle Knights. And I know this closely because I'm tracking all the Kiwi-NRL players that are signed. So Tigers, they have a lot of Kiwi-NRL players who are signed, and a lot of Kiwi-NRL players signed usually means that you're not developing your own local talent. And it's the same with the Newcastle Knights. I'll do the same exercise. This is all off the top of my head, so bear with me. Newcastle Knights, Callum Ponga, Cowboys Junior. Tuala, Cowboys Junior. Kurt Mann, started with the Storm. Bradman Best, Knights Junior. Heimel Hunt was a signing for the Knights. He's from Queensland something. Jake Clifford, Cowboys Junior. Mitchell Pearce, Roosters Junior. Sawaso Sue, started with the Bulldogs. Jaden Brayley started with the Sharks. Saifidi, Sharks, Knights Junior. Frizzell, Sharks Junior, I think. Mitchell Barnett, Knights Junior. Connor Watson, Roosters Junior. Brody Jones, Knights Junior. Randall, Knights Junior. Josh King, Knights Junior maybe. And Jura Momasia from Auckland. But he is a Knights Junior. So, like, most of these clubs have, like, well, yeah, it's not everyone. Like, this is all off the top of my head, so it's not an exact science. But there are a lot of clubs that just don't have the Panthers type of production line coming through. And then you look at the Roosters and Storm, who don't have much of a local development catchment, but they are the best at recruiting from elsewhere. So it's like, whatever way you slice it, I think the dirty secret in the NRL is that most NRL clubs aren't doing the Panthers thing of having the majority of their NRL team come from their own junior system, which you're experiencing with the Dragons, because that's what you're getting now. You're getting Jaden Sullivan, Terrell Sloan, Talatau Amone as well. They are really good local prospects, and that's where you want to get, because as we know, they are cheaper options, they are development players, better vibes, all that.
Yeah, time will tell whether the Dragons are actually going to be any good doing that or not. But I mean, like, you only have to look at the top of the table to see the point of that, because there's like two of the most extreme ones there that you mentioned, Panthers obviously, and then the Storm, who pretty much don't even have like a local contingent. Is like it's getting there a little bit more these days, but definitely to this point in the history, and like they've been the dominant team of the last 10 years as well. And throughout this, like there's two different, like the two extremes there, and then there's still the two best teams right now. So it doesn't really matter, I suppose, either way. It reminds me a little bit of when I was doing a bit of research on Brentford in the English Premier League, but before they were in the Premier League, when they were playing with when Winston Reid was there on loan late last season in the Championship before they got promoted, and they basically like got to the point where they're just like, we're not even going to have an academy anymore, because our best players get snapped up by bigger clubs before they're at the age where they're old enough to be signed by us on professional terms, when it's still sort of like you're under 17s. I think it's pretty much like free movement. There might be compensation. I don't know if they end up getting signed down the line, but they were just like, it's too expensive to put all these facilities into this. So what we're going to do is our reserve team is going to be players that we're going to like Moneyball scout, and we're just going to who is a good player we think is not getting opportunities in another club, we'll bring them into our reserve team. And who is a guy from overseas who might take some time to settle into the English league, we'll bring him in. And if he works, sweet as. If it doesn't, who cares? Like we've tried. It's a lot cheaper than what we're doing before. And they've just sort of turned themselves into a very smart club that recruits extremely well, and then sells extremely well because they've recruited well, which is the same thing basically, at least in English football and European football in general. It is kind of like, I just wonder if that's a little more of a trend that we'll see. Like it's, you don't necessarily get those, because I mean the famous story there probably over the last couple decades is that like class of 92 Man United team with the Nevilles and Scholes and Beckham and Giggs and Nicky Butt and all these guys coming through at the same time, and they all grew up like playing youth football together from the ages of like 6 or 7 and what. But I just don't see, once everything sort of opened up globally, and it's not globally so much with the NRL, but it's a bit more like I mean, you could say it is, because yeah, it's certainly more international than it has been. Like at that point, you're not putting the genie back in the lamp, and it's just you're just not going to see that many instances. And there will be some, like the Panthers are a great example right now of the team who's doing great at that, but like the Storm are a great example of a team that's also having equal success without doing that. So it's sort of like whatever works for you is fine, but it's not different. Like if I'm a Knights fan right now, I'm not upset because the guys didn't grow up down the road like the Johns brothers presumably did. I'm saying Kalen Pong is pretty bloody good, and I'll take it regardless of where he came from, you know?
Yeah, but you can't pretend like I'm thinking of a way to bring it all together, put the bow on top as like,
yeah.
Maybe the dirty secret is that your favorite NRL clubs development pathway just sucks. Because
A lot of them probably do.
Yeah, because there's only maybe 3 or 4 that are really, really good. But even then, Storm and Roosters, their development pathway is scouting. Their development pathway is going abroad and looking in New Zealand and stuff like that. The big club to watch out for right now, as we've discussed many times, is Gold Coast Titans. They've got a lot of Kiwi-NRL players in the lower ranks who, to your Manchester United example, are all playing together. They're all playing in the same Burleigh Bears under-21s team right now, and they're all from Aotearoa. So that's something where, like, I can see the Gold Coast Titans are really getting into that junior, like Titans junior centric. Now, they don't all have to be from the Gold Coast region, but they are focusing their energy on getting a lot of young players together under the Titans umbrella, local juniors and juniors from Aotearoa specifically, bring them up through the Titans together. That's when you get the benefits as well. But that is probably a fantastic place to stop. We'll be back with some more Kiwi-NRL yarns in the future. You can read all about it at thenews-case.com. Pick it up to yourself. Māori ora, kia kaha, stay beautiful. Cheers.